everybody. I do believe everybody's supposed to be muted upon entry and also remain muted throughout the presentation. So I don't believe you have control over your audio. Natasha is telling me I am correct. You do not have control over your audio. But that's fine. Thank you so much for signing on, everybody. If you do want to talk to us, or if you have any questions or just want to say hi, I think that many of us might be used to these Zoom meetings and webinars because of this past year, but please use the chat function. You can move your mouse around and you'll see on the bottom of your screen like a bar, and there'll be one button that says chat, and if you click on that, that's where you can type in some questions or comments. Natasha, I believe, has started the chat. Yep, saying welcome to everybody. So you might see an orange box just sort of popping up and blinking. And that's Natasha. So, hi, Sandra. So, yes, thank you again for those of you who have just signed on. We are admitting people from the waiting room as we go. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your night to tune in to our biodiversity chat. We are launching our 2021 biodiversity campaign today, which is really exciting. Looking forward to telling you all about what's going on. But again, just to touch base for those people who were just admitted now, you are muted and you will remain muted for the period of the whole presentation. If you do wish to chat with us or ask a question or interact with other people, you can do so in the chat function. And you can find the chat function by moving the mouse around, and you'll see a bar on the bottom, and one of the buttons will say chat. And we'll also put some information in there if and when it's appropriate. Please do ask questions throughout the presentation. There's obviously time at the end, so if you wanted to keep your questions at the end, you absolutely can. Natasha is going to be recording questions if I don't get to them, because like as we go, I'll have the chat box open and I'll look and I'll see if people are making comments or if there's any questions, and I'll try to answer them when I see them. But if I miss them, Natasha will just record them, and we'll be able to ask them at the end of the presentation or answer them at the end of the presentation. Okay, so I believe that's probably it. So I will introduce myself. My name is Velta. I work for Ecology Ottawa. I am the Living City Program Manager. I've been with the organization now for almost 8 years. It'll be 8 years in April. I may have had the pleasure of meeting a bunch of you in person, maybe not, but thank you so much for taking the time and spending your 1 hour tonight with us. And I would also like to introduce Natasha. Well, she can introduce herself, but I'm just going to say Natasha, and she'll start talking.
Hey guys, thanks, Velta. Yeah, I'm really happy to be here. Really glad you guys have joined us. I'm the Living City organizer. I've been with Ecology Ottawa since last March, so almost a year now. And yeah, looking forward to having a really good discussion and seeing all your questions.
Excellent. So I'm just going to jump in. If you would like to use social media to, I don't know, take pictures of the presentation or whatever, you can please do tag us at Ecology Ottawa. And we're pretty lucky on all of the platforms. We're just at Ecology Ottawa. So if it's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, same thing. So we're pretty happy about that we got in on the ground floor. And if you wanted to use the hashtag nature is not canceled, that is the hashtag that we have been using for our biodiversity campaign for the past year. I don't think I have to explain too much why hashtags are important. So if you are oot in a boot during the winter time, or if you participate in our program and you take a picture and you post it, it would be great if you tagged us and if you use the hashtag nature is not canceled. This was happening before. I seem to have to click twice every time I want to switch the slide. So I do apologize if there's a little bit of a lag. All right, so biodiversity. I don't feel that we need to spend too much time explaining what biodiversity is, but it's basically just defined as the variety of life on Earth. Obviously, we can get really in depth into biodiversity if we wanted to and get really like in the science, but that's not really what this presentation is about. But ultimately, we would like to make sure that we're all on the same page around the fact that each living thing has its place in the web of nature. We all interact with each other, and therefore every living thing is important, no matter how small. And we're going to be talking today about biodiversity specifically in Ottawa. And what we have to say about Ottawa isn't really that different than other municipalities or cities or urban areas around the world. Basically, like most cities, Ottawa's urban environment is really not a great place for biodiversity. Every time you, I don't know, like pave over, build up, and pollute a natural environment, nature doesn't seem to tend to do so well with that. I mean, it adapts. We obviously have an adapted environment or adapted urban environment, but when it comes to biodiversity, it's definitely not the most biodiverse place in the planet. They're also our urbanized land is also very stressed. It's not a comfortable place to have a healthy lifestyle for most flora and fauna. And like I said, they definitely have to adapt. Now, we have, and this was something that really surprised me when we first started to go down the biodiversity route at Ecology Ottawa last year, because as many of you may or may not know, we are really community organizers at Ecology Ottawa. We're not necessarily biodiversity specialists or, tree experts or climate scientists. What we're really trying to do at Ecology Ottawa is push for better bylaws, better implementation of environmental practices on a municipal scale, while also giving our supporters the opportunities to really get more involved with these changes on a local community level. Now, so with that in mind, when we started doing research about biodiversity in Ottawa and species at risk and what's going on, I was very surprised to find out that we have over 60 species in the Ottawa area that are at risk or endangered. And that really, I think, drove it home for me about how important not just nature preservation is, but the integration of nature within the urban environment is. We need to give our flora and our fauna a chance. And so this slide just basically shows you a few of the really neat, 4 of the neat endangered species that are in and around Ottawa. So the top left picture is the Eastern Prairie Fringed Orchid. There's one area, I believe, in the Carp Highlands where you might be able to go see this particular Northern Hemisphere temperate orchid, which just blows my mind. If anybody knows anything about orchids, you'll know that usually they're very, very tropical and they require a lot of moisture to survive. So the fact that there's one that can survive a winter just blows my mind. Then we have next to it the Canadian warbler. one of the really cute bees, which is the rusty patched bumblebee. Now, if you are into pollinators and you're into bees, which I know that a lot of people are, there's actually like a whole subculture and community around the rusty patched bumblebee, where, you know, you try to like find them and log them and stuff. And basically what makes them the rusty or call them, you can see, if you can see my cursor there, these two little dots on its bum make it's rusty patch. Anyway, super cute, looks very much like a bumblebee, but it's got those rusty patches, very adorable. And then we have the American eel as well. And like I said, that's only 4 of 60. So Shan has said, wonder if there are biodiversity friendly urban center ratings. If so, where Ottawa would sit. Well, that's a very good question / comment. We're going to get into, I guess, a little bit about our opinions about the city of Ottawa and how they're doing when it comes to or regarding biodiversity, upholding biodiversity and like healthy urban green spaces. But I would say we wouldn't rank particularly high. I don't think we would be necessarily in the bottom, but we're definitely not in the top, somewhere in the middle, but whether or not we'd be low middle, high middle, I'm not entirely sure. But there are definitely absolutely places where you can go to try and find out like different ranking systems when it comes to urban biodiversity. Now, we, as part of our research, we actually found some of these ranking systems. So all of you, if you've RSVP'd and registered for this event, you are going to be receiving an email at the end where we're going to give you links to different information. And since you brought this up, Sean, what we're going to do is we'll just put a link to one of those ranking systems in there, and you can do a little bit of reading unto yourself and maybe make up your own mind about how well or not well we are doing. So the campaign, because as I mentioned, we don't just give people ways to get involved in their communities, we're also really trying to hold our decision makers accountable. So when it comes to the biodiversity campaign, we did a lot of research and we collaborated, or at least liaised with the City of Ottawa staff. And we found out that the City of Ottawa has some policies in place that are definitely designed to strengthen urban ecosystems. And their theory of practice is that healthy and strong urban ecosystems will create the environment necessary to increase local biodiversity. If you have healthy green spaces, you should have healthy biodiversity as well. And, you know, like if you build it, they will come type of a theory. And really, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that theory. There's nothing wrong with that type of practice that you're trying to prioritize and strengthen and connect green spaces and really integrate living nature into the fabric of our city. There's nothing wrong with that theory. The problem is that they have no way of knowing if their theory is working. So the City of Ottawa isn't monitoring any of their biodiversity. They aren't ranking or rating or seeing how efficient their large or, you know, small urban green spaces are when it comes to actually performing ecosystem functions. And that's kind of a problem. So they believe like they're definitely putting, you know, biodiversity language in a plethora of different plans, and they're creating a new Parks and Green Space Master Plan, which is very exciting. It's part of the new official plan. And if you guys are policy wonks or geeks and you really want to get in on all of this like new official plan stuff, please, you know, reach out. It's definitely something that we're working quite heavily on. And we will actually put a link also in the email to, I guess, the new official plan, but also tomorrow is the deadline to submit your opinions on the Parks and Green Space, or the new proposed Parks and Green Space Master Plan. So we're going to give you a link where you can go and you can fill out this survey. And basically it's, 10 minutes where you get to talk about how often you use parks and what kind of parks do you use, and what would you like the City of Ottawa to do more of with their parks. So that would really help. The more people that tell the City of Ottawa that we need to have a naturalized environment, that we need to have connected green spaces, that we need to prioritize healthy, functioning, natural ecosystems within the heart of our urban core, better chance that they'll actually listen. So if you guys could do that, we'll send out an email. We'll prioritize it this time, and we'll send it in the morning. Thanks, Natasha. And so hopefully if you have time tomorrow before, I think 6 p.m., that would be really great if you guys could submit your comments. Anyway, so back to the biodiversity plan. So the City of Ottawa has no plan to monitor biodiversity or monitor how functional their green spaces are, because as you may or may not know, just because your park has grass and trees doesn't mean that it's actually performing really any ecosystem functions whatsoever. Even when it comes to rain, I don't know if you've noticed, there's actually some parks where there are sewers in the middle of a field. And that's because even those parks, even that green space there, isn't absorbing water. So there are definitely some things that can be improved upon when it comes to our green spaces here in Ottawa. So Ecology Ottawa, us being us, we recognize that this is a big job, monitoring not only ecosystems, but also monitoring the biodiversity that's around. And so that's part of the campaign. So we're calling on the City of Ottawa to prioritize biodiversity monitoring and ecosystem monitoring. And we're calling on residents, such as yourself, to take on the flora and fauna monitoring of your nearby nature. And we're going to get back into that, or I'm going to talk about that in the upcoming slides. But we're basically asking you guys to become biodiversity champions. So I see that there is a question from Peter. Could you provide some examples of ecosystem functions? Absolutely. So trees and other, leafy, barky entities, they do a lot of carbon filtration from the atmosphere. They take out carbon dioxide, they put out oxygen. They also filter a lot of other toxins out of the air as well. So they really help with increasing air quality. Green spaces that are happy and healthy, which often include a variety of different pollinator plants or grasses or bushes or whatever, they will filter water. So when it rains, instead of that water just rushing off of paved surfaces into our sewers and our water treatment plants, they will process the water through the natural ecosystem. So it goes right back into the water table, and that's ultimately really what we want. If we have a lot of pollinator plants out there, then we're going to have a lot of lovely pollinators. And I think that we all know that we definitely need pollinators in our lives. They do so much for us. It reduces heat island effect as well. So when it comes to the amount of sun that gets absorbed and translated into either radiant heat. So, when sun hits pavement or anything that's a dark surface, that surface is going to absorb the heat and re-radiate it back. So that's why it's really hot to walk along a street in the summertime, but it's nice and cool and breezy if you go through a park. So that's just, a couple of examples of ecosystem functions, but there's definitely a lot more out there if you wanted to have a look-see. We do, okay, so thank you so much, Nina. Yes, we absolutely will give you access to this recorded video. It's going to be uploaded to our YouTube channel. So we'll give you a link in the email as well to our YouTube channel. And I believe you should be able to share that to a Facebook group. Okay, And you're very welcome. Okie dokie. So, all right, so as I mentioned, what is a biodiversity champion? It's people who are going to monitor their nearby nature. And we have totally jumped on the iNaturalist bandwagon. If you have not checked out iNaturalist, it is super cool. Like, I don't know, for even people who don't geek out on nature and stuff, like, I still think it's really cool. It's almost like playing Pokemon Go, but with like for realsies with all the things, which is great. So it's an app, it's a free app. You can download it onto your phone. Doesn't matter if it's, if it's an Apple or if it isn't. You can, and then what we really want you to do is join our program. We're going to have a link to our program also in the email. It's a very important email. We're going to have a link to the program in the email as well, so that once you have downloaded the app, you can just click it, and then you can join our program or join our project. And then what you really need to do is just start monitoring your nearby nature. Like, there's not necessarily a lot that you can monitor in the wintertime. Like, you can walk up to a tree and try to identify it. You might be a tree expert, and you just know a tree by its bark. That's awesome. But one of the amazing functions, and one of the reasons why iNaturalist has become so popular, is that you don't actually need to know what you're taking a picture of or what the nature is. You can take a picture of it and say you don't know what it is. And there's a couple of things that happens. First thing is it'll pop up with options for you. They're like, oh, from this picture, it could be one of these, 5 different species of butterfly or whatever, and if you know a little bit about what you're looking at, you can choose that species, or you can just skip that and say unknown. And because there's so many people out there that love to identify nature, experts will go in and they'll identify your whatever it is that you've done, like you've taken a picture of, for you. And so the next time you log on, you might learn that that butterfly that you took a picture of was not actually a butterfly, it was a moth. I don't know, the Eastern fire moth. I'm not sure. Anyway, but it's really cool. So you end up learning a lot, and you end up having, great interactions with people online. So you don't have to be intimidated. You don't need to know what you're looking at. You don't need to know, and you don't have to commit to identifying anything. You can just walk around, take a picture, and click unknown. But what's really important about monitoring our nearby nature is that we absolutely don't know what is average on your block, or in your local park, or just in Ottawa in general. And so we really need, hundreds, if not thousands of people logging their nearby nature as often as you can. And what's really exciting is that we're going to be having some events this summer that are going to help you, hopefully, if we can gather, do this with local experts, and it's going to be fun. All right, so I see a couple questions. Would you like us to create notes to share on the program? Should we have a shared document to download these observations? No, so that's what iNaturalist does. That's the point of iNaturalist. You log all of your information into the program, and then what we can do on the back end is, if we wanted to see just the impact that our project has had, we can just search the data from the project. It is an amazing open source software program. It's really, really cool. So yeah, iNaturalist is the shared document. And then, oh, okay, so Shan has been using Seek app, and it's connected to iNaturalist. Cool, that's awesome. Well, if it's connected to iNaturalist, you should probably easily be able to join our project. So I'm not going to go too far into this. I would like to leave space for further conversation. But yeah, oh, Emily. Yes, the project is called Ecology Ottawa's BioBlitz. And is it worthwhile to log the same species in the same area on multiple days to record those there repeatedly over time? My answer is yes, like because you also don't know if it's the same. Well, I mean, if it's a fauna, absolutely. If it's a flora, I don't think that matters as much. So if it's a tree or a plant or something like that, it's not going to move. So I don't think that it matters if you log that particular plant or flora multiple times, but definitely fauna, absolutely. So anything that moves around. But yeah, so iNaturalist, super simple. You download the app, you take pictures on your phone, you add any detail that you may or may not have, and then that's it. That's basically it. It's super fun, and I really do hope that we're able to gather in the future. So some people have not yet become familiar with the term BioBlitz. And so basically it's just a scheduled time where you document your nearby nature. So you can BioBlitz yourself. Like you can take your friends into your backyard and BioBlitz, or your kids, and teach them about their nearby nature. And that could be your own little family BioBlitz. It doesn't necessarily have to be a big scheduled event, but the BioBlitzes tend to happen in these larger events, usually an in-person event, but like last year we definitely were experimenting with online events, and we did these virtual field trips to kind of kick off our BioBlitz weekends. I think that they worked fine, but we really are hoping that this year we're going to be able to gather outdoors in the summertime, but our fingers are crossed. We're obviously going to follow all the health directives, and if it's not safe to gather, we will absolutely not gather, and we'll just continue doing everything online. But currently we're planning to have 5 in-person BioBlitz events, which we're really excited about. They're going to be in the different corners of Ottawa. So we're going to be out east, west, south, center, and we're going to try to find different kinds of environments to be able to blitz our bios. And we really hope that you guys are able to come along. Just because you go to one BioBlitz doesn't mean that you can't come to another one, because like we said, we're going to try to make them in different areas so you can see different ecosystems. In the coming slides, I'm going to describe some of the really cool areas around Ottawa. Ottawa is such an amazing, like it's an ecosystem and biodiversity, like it's so diverse. We have so many cool and crazy ecosystems that if you haven't actually sat back and tried to look at it, they are, you probably wouldn't even know that they're there. So yeah, so where shall one blitz their bio? Basically anywhere and everywhere. There's a whole world to discover in your backyard, in your park, in your community garden. Like, it's really cool. Once you start actually focusing on what's around you, it's really neat. And the other thing, one of the really neat things about these BioBlitzes, or something that at least I learned last year, even though I instinctively knew it, it was really, I don't know, it really drove it home that everything, like seasons change. The stuff that you're able to log in the spring, you don't necessarily see it in the summer, and you don't necessarily see it in the fall, and you don't necessarily see it in the winter. So there's never a bad time to log your nearby nature. In the winter time, for example, coming up in the next, I think month or something, there is like a bird monitoring one. Anyway, Natasha told me about it. It sounds really cool. It's like your backyard bird count or something. Anyway, so like even in the wintertime, there's things that you can get involved in if you want to. So Peter has asked another great question. If you don't have data on your phone and you need to upload your photos to your computer first and then upload them to iNaturalist. Okay, that's not really a question, that's a statement. It's a very true statement. If you do not have data on your phone, that's exactly what you do. And actually, there's a lot of really experienced bio-blitzers that even if they did have data on their phone, they don't use their phone when they go out on a walk. They take a camera because they like the quality of the picture better. And then they'll like load it onto iNaturalist on their computers. So that is definitely something that people do. All right, so now I'm just going to go through a few pretty neat areas around Ottawa that you may or may not have heard of. Excuse me, I'm actually just going to take a second to take a drink. All right, so maybe you have, maybe you haven't heard of Carp Hills. Carp Hills is just a really beautiful area. It is a beautiful area in the wintertime. It is extraordinary in the springtime. Some of the flora that you can see in the springtime in Carp Hills is just beyond. If you're unsure where it is, it's just west of Ottawa, and it's an island of about 1 billion year old rock. It's about 10,000 acres, which makes it the second largest natural area within Ottawa. And it's definitely, a lot of it is protected, and it has very particular ecosystems. It's identified as one of the most significant areas in the municipality for maintaining biodiversity and ecological function, as well as for its outstanding examples of granitic bedrock barrens. So barrens are more often seen in northern climates, or at least more along the Shield and the Canadian Shield. And that's one of the things that's really neat about Ottawa, is that we kind of have all of these converging different ecosystems. We're sort of like a focal point for northern ecosystems, southern ecosystems, eastern ecosystems, western ecosystems, like prairies. So Ottawa's a really cool place for a lot of these areas. So you can also check out an organization called, I think it's the Friends of Carp Hills, and they've got lots of maps of the area that you can go hiking spring, summer, winter. It's pretty cool. So these are just some examples of things that you can see in the Carp Hills. So obviously this gorgeous mossy, like just beautiful forest. It's so pretty, but it's also pretty in the wintertime, and it has some very cool local wildlife, like the Blanding's turtle, which is one of the endangered species in Ottawa right there. So poor guy getting his face bitten by a mosquito. And within the Carp Hills, there's a place called Carp Barons. And Carp Barons is of particular note because it's the only substantial outlying island of Shield in southern Ontario. And this produces a pretty acidic environment, which is, it's not dangerous, but it creates the environment for different and neat types of wildlife. So this generally acidic and extreme environment supports plants that are uncommon or rare in the Ottawa area. Spring in the Carp Barons is a very special time. So if you wanted to create a hiking list for the area, Carp Barons is where you should go in the springtime. What moisture remains from the melted snow and the early rains causes just an explosion of flowers. And it's really something quite beautiful. One of the pictures here, I don't know if you know it's a ladyfinger. I actually grew up in Manitoba, where ladyfingers aren't uncommon. And I was really surprised to find out that I could see these ladyfingers here in Ottawa. But just like a lot of sensitive ecosystems and sensitive environments, this is a very particular environment. You want to make sure that you take care when you go visit it. And human traffic can easily erase decades of growth in a short period of time, because especially in these environments, things don't grow very quickly. Another really lovely place to visit is Blue Bog. So Carp Hills and Carp Barons is more on the western side of Ottawa. Bleu, it's in the green belt, more on the eastern side of, or it's in the eastern green belt of Ottawa. It's also very lovely. It's a great place to go with your kids. You've got boardwalks that go around the bog. It's really cool. It is a northern boreal landscape, and it really provides a unique opportunity to see this kind of thing. It plays an important part of stabilizing the climate. It's one of the most studied bogs in the world, which again kind of blew my mind, that here in Ottawa we have one of the most studied bogs, especially when you think about like places like Scotland. They're filled with bogs. Why is our bog so particularly important? But that's great. And it's where we also have a lot of peat. So it's a peated environment. Anyway, really cool, really neat. If you haven't gone, there is a walking boardwalk, as you can see in this picture right over here. So you can even walk with a stroller if you have a baby with you. And then there are walking trails around the bog as well, that where you can take dogs. You can't take dogs on the boardwalk here, but you can take them in the walking paths along. You can also go biking there. It's a really great, it's definitely not only is it a biodiversity hotspot, it's definitely an activity hotspot around Ottawa. And it's, if you haven't been, you should absolutely go. Another kind of more eastern, northeastern one is Greens Creek. It's an area of unusual geology. It has steep-sided ravines and plateaus, which is something that you might be more used to seeing in a place like Toronto. And what's nice is that there's several short ski and hiking trails as well as a toboggan slide. So this is a year-round joy for outdoor enthusiasts. But one of the great things about Greens Creek, because we're talking about biodiversity and we're talking about ecosystem functions, is that it provides this crucial link between Bleu and the Ottawa River. So Bleu, you know, it's a bog, it's filled with water, but it has to drain out into the surrounding environment, and it does that partially through Greens Creek, which is pretty exciting. And because of this, the creek supports a variety of provincially and regionally rare species. So if this is an area that you're interested in, there's absolutely trails, like I said, for skiing, hiking, snowshoeing, that kind of a thing. So check it out. And I guess a little bit more, now we've gone from like, you know, west to east, now we're going to come a little bit more center. The Britannia Conservation Area, also known as Mud Lake. So that's kind of the northern part of Ottawa, close to, well, I guess it's in Britannia, in the community of Britannia. So you can check that out. Mud Lake, it's a really neat area. It's identified as a provincially significant wetland. And an area of natural and scientific interest, which is kind of cool. And there's so many amazing species found there. 269 species of birds, like 269 species of birds, whether that is permanent settlements or, you know, they are migratory. That's a lot. That biodiversity level rivals that of, well, maybe it doesn't rival that of Costa Rica. I think Costa Rica has something like over 400 species of birds, but come on, like 270 species of birds in a temperate northern climate where, you know, basically we've got 5 months out of the year where it's habitable for them. This is great. This is pretty awesome. So anyway, if you are a birder, or if you desire to be a birder, or you would like the experience to see if you will become a birder, go to Britannia Conservation Area. It's the place that you want to go. There's also tons of amphibians, reptiles, fish species, not usually commonly found in the area. And yes, so Andrew said so many turtles, tons of turtles, lots of turtles. So if you like amphibians and you think turtles are like super cute, you can absolutely see them sunning themselves. It's really great. There's also 44 rare and 15 uncommon plant species. And within all of that, wildlife and species at risk. So Mud Lake is definitely a place that you should put on your list of places to go. If you choose to go in the spring, be prepared. It's called Mud Lake. Okay? Be prepared. Wear your rubber boots or galoshes, or at least be aware you're going to leave muddy and wet and potentially cold. But don't let that stop you. There's no such thing as bad weather, just poorly prepared people. So here's just some examples of the different types of cool birds, ducks, and, you know, some more painted turtles, or I think they're painted turtles. I'm not sure. Again, not a biologist here. So those are just a few that I decided to highlight. There are so many more around Ottawa. Oh, Cecilia says that last year at Mud Lake, there was a great blue heron nest. Ooh, the blue herons, those are pretty cool. I like herons. They actually, I believe it's the herons. I know a tidbit of information about herons. They are the kind of like very stork almost looking creatures. Long legs, kind of tight body, pointy, long pointy beak. They are very quiet as adults because they're the ones that kind of slowly walk through the water and like pick up fish really quickly. And they're very, very quiet because they don't want to disturb their prey while they're hunting. But as chicks, as babies, they are extremely loud because the loudest chick gets the most food from the parent. So it's a really interesting transition that they go through from being like babies and taken care of, where they're really loud and noisy, and the noisier they are, the more food that they get, to being these very, you know, zen, quiet parental or adult features. Anyway, stuff is cool. Stuff is cool out there. Almost everything out there has a cool story. So there's a lot to discover. And Sandra has talked about the Piney sand dunes. Those are also really neat. And probably I'm going to want to maybe like add them to this presentation at some point in the future, because they are also a very unique ecosystem. They're here on this sheet. They're number 8. I don't know if you see that over here, the Piney Sand Dune Complex, but it's basically the only natural sand dune complex in the vicinity, or like this, I guess, like this far away from large water bodies. It's so cool. And there is, if you are really into sand dunes, there is a group that is dedicated to rehabilitating the sand dunes. They've done some amazing work, absolutely amazing work. They have brought different species of bugs and beetles almost back from the brink of extinction. They've given them like a great place to live. It's a very, very, oh, Biodiversity Conservancy International. Okay, cool. Thank you. Thanks, Sandra. Anyway, so it's really neat. Basically, all of these areas have dedicated volunteer teams. So not that, you know, like if you want to volunteer your time, we would love to give you stuff to do at Ecology Ottawa. But if you're very particular about the things that you want to do and you love sand dunes or peat bogs or whatever, every single one of these areas has a need for volunteers or assistance in one form or another. So absolutely, definitely reach out. But this is also a great list if you wanted to do 10 really cool hikes this year, and you can plan it around. So here's like a great place for you guys to go. And now that you know how to use iNaturalist, go and start documenting the nearby nature in these biodiversity hotspots around Ottawa. So, I mean, I feel like everybody's felt particularly comfortable asking questions throughout, but this is definitely the time in the discussion for you to ask any further questions that you have or make any comments. As I mentioned, we are going to be sending out an email. The email won't, it will have a link to this. I don't think it will have a link to this for tomorrow, but there are going to be a couple of other links, maybe not a link to this particular video yet, but there will be a link to our YouTube page, so you'll be able to check it out in the following weeks to come. We're going to give you a link to a bunch of different information, like to our I'm losing my words, guys, to our iNaturalist project. And we're going to give you a link to our petition, because we do have a petition calling on the City of Ottawa to adopt a monitoring program for their green spaces. But we're calling on you guys to monitor the nearby nature and to monitor all of the flora and fauna that's around. So that's that. Oh, thanks, Jen. I'm really happy you like the presentation. So that's that. If you have any questions, concerns, now's the time. But if there's nothing else, thank you so much, guys. Like, it's really great. It's too bad that we don't get to meet in person. Hopefully it's coming soon. This year, we really are looking forward to having more of these informational webinars with guest speakers and experts in their field. We're going to have fun Trivia Tuesdays happening. So if you wanted to, with your family, come and, try to win some awesome local prizes, great. Please do. And then keep an eye out, obviously, for the bio blitzes, and hopefully we'll be able to gather and actually be able to meet in person. So Shan has said, I wonder how much of the citizen science data versus expert data can be used for monitoring biodiversity. Well, that's something else that's really awesome about iNaturalist, is that it actually will rate your entry. And there's research grade entries. And so last year we were really surprised and very proud that like over 60% of our supporters who documented their nearby nature, over 60% was considered research grade, which is the top grade. So it's absolutely very influential and needed. So glad you guys had fun. Thank you so much, everybody. All right, so I think that's it. Say two. I'm going to stop my screen share now, and then we can say goodbye to everybody, unless you have further questions or comments. Good night, everybody. Bye, Shan.
Bye, everyone. Thanks so much for coming.